I'm Daniel Montgomery here for our Meet the Experts panel of Emmy-nominated showrunners. I'm joined by Justin Halpern and Patrick Schumacker from Abbott Elementary and Abe Sylvia from Palm Royale. Now, first off, you're all nominated for Best Comedy Series this year. So let's start with a general question. Like, what do you think are some of the key ingredients to making a comedy successful? Start with Justin.
Being funny. I think that it's funny. There's a lot of sort of talk about like, what is a comedy? What isn't a comedy? And for us, it's like we enter every episode when we go to break the story, we try to think, how are we going to make people laugh? That is our intent. And so I think, I think it's pretty simple. It's having funny characters and trying to, tell a story that will make the audience laugh.
I have nothing to add to that. I think that would.
And how about you, Abe?
No, I totally co-sign that, and I would just add, I think when it comes to our show, that there's like an underlying pathos to every joke. So, everyone's talking about like what's a comedy, what's a drama, like in this, in this world, it's like Joni Mitchell says laughing and crying are the same release. So it's like if you're gonna get a laugh, it's because there is pain there. There's an identifiable, catharsis that's around it. So it's like, yes, it's about getting the laugh, but I think there are things that are like objectively funny on paper. It's like I can be aware that's like, okay, technically I guess that's funny. But if that other thing isn't there that is identifiable as like some form of suffering, you're not going to get the real laugh. So that's the only thing I would sort of add to that, you sort of need that other element. Otherwise, it's also sort of just hackery,
Yeah, I really agree with that, because I feel like, again, I think it's kind of, we had mentioned this earlier, but my favorite comedies are the ones that don't exist in like this alternate universe. They are ones where we are, adhering to I mean, it doesn't mean they can't be surreal or anything like that, but I just mean they're adhering to like the human experience, and that is the underlying foundation of it. And from there, we try to build on that and be funny. And I agree. I think like the biggest laughs come from things that are sometimes like upsetting or real. It's all building the same tension, and it's just in which way are we going to release that tension.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that like dichotomy of like laughing and crying being the same release, because we've had a lot of feedback on, at least as far as Abbott's concerned, like from teachers, and most of them are like, this is hilarious and I feel seen. And there is a smaller percentage of them that are like, oh my God, this show is giving me PTSD, I feel seen. So yeah. Two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
And either way, they're watching, so we don't give a shit.
And being a showrunner is more than just writing, although that's a huge part of it. What would you say is your favorite aspect of running a show and overseeing a production like you do, Abe?
I just sort of like hosting the party. I think I do like people to bring their best, and I like people to surprise me. And I think if people are kind of running around scared of you, that's not going to happen. So, in empowering people to delight themselves, it's like you sort of give people parameters of what you're looking for, and then you empower them to like make, if you've got two choices to make, bring me the one that makes you giggle, bring me the one that brings you joy. That part's really, really fun. Like the additive qualities. It's like, as writers, we grind and we grind and we grind and we grind on these scripts. And that's actually that is the hardest part. The hardest part, hands down, for me, I don't mean to speak for everybody, the hardest part is in the room, like where you're staring at a blank page and there's nothing there. Those pages getting into the hands of the designers, then getting into the hands of the actors. And when the icing starts coming and suddenly you're there and it's this thing is alive in front of you, that's really exciting. The party is happening. You're sort of the conductor. Like that's kind of that's the thrilling part.
Justin?
Yeah, for me, just going through the line items of a budget, it's just like that just does it for me. But no, no,
He's gotten really good at Excel.
yeah, I like the part that's like I was describing the other day is like running a show is like one part this like amazing creative collaboration, and the other part is just like managing a fucking McDonald's. Like it's just like it's just simple management work that's like hard and tedious and kind of boring, but it is necessary to make all of the creative stuff that you want to have happen.
Do you
But
love talking on the phone?
I love it. I love just a meeting where no one really came with an agenda and we're all just sitting there trying to figure out who called the meeting.
Give it to me.
Yeah. But I agree. I think the collaboration is the most fun part. I mean, it's seeing stuff that somebody pitches a joke and then somebody beats that joke, or somebody pitches an idea and somebody else pitches an idea. I think the most exciting part about show running for me is when somebody shows me that I'm wrong, because that means we got to a better idea.
Yep.
And that's where you get super excited. That's why you have a room.
Yeah, I mean, we are, obviously partners, and with Abbott, we have a unique sort of like three-headed entity, with Quinta also being the showrunner and also the star of the show, and I think for all of us, but I mean, Justin spends like the lion's share of the time in the writers' room, and that's kind of his station, and probably I would say your favorite part of the job.
Yeah, for sure.
I am kind of more of like a floater, like in pre-production, I'm in the writer's room the whole time. But then once we go into production, I'm like back and forth, going to direct an episode this year. I love being on set, just as much as being in the writer's room. And so I love just being able to participate in like every aspect of a production, which you're obviously privy to, being in this role. But I actually don't know how like solo showrunners do it, other than having an amazing group to collaborate with. Justin and I have only ever run shows together, and sometimes with a third person, as in Abbott and some of our other shows. So to be able to sort of divide and conquer in that way is the only way that I think I could be sane. But I just love kind of being able to be a part of it all.
Now you all work in writers' rooms, of course, but like, what's your ideal environment in general for writing or sparking ideas and creativity? Like, is there a particular routine that you have, or habits that you've developed? How about you, Patrick?
Well, we start off the day with about 45 minutes of YouTube. And then, no, I mean, like, honestly though, it's like, for me, I think the ideal environment, or the way to kind of kick things off every day, is kind of organically, and you just do sort of like host chat. Yeah, exactly. And just get everybody talking. And we're all friends here at Abbott, and I think we try and run kind of like a meritocracy, and try and make sure that everybody knows that, like, so what, it's a bad idea, we'll move on. Nobody's gonna linger on it. It's a safe place. It just becomes like a big fun conversation. And that has worked out really well for us. Just making sure that everybody feels welcome, and they're not the ideas aren't always going to be winners. I've yesterday pitched one of the worst jokes I've ever pitched in my life and moved on from it. So I know
I haven't.
Yeah, Justin's never pitched a bad joke.
No, I haven't moved on from it.
Oh, okay. He's batting 1,000 though, jokes wise.
Justin?
Oh, you don't need to hear me again. Abe, you go.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think to sort of get the best out of the writers, you kind of get the world out of their system. Our system, like, we're sensitive creatures. We're like all super engaged with what's happening at any given moment on the planet, and we're all reading everything. We're all terrified of the world, like, and also we're trying to make a lighthearted, delightful show. And so oftentimes I'll sort of start not only just sort of start the day with like, hey, what'd you guys do last night? Yada, yada. We sort of like, let's do 10 minutes on the world, and because I've found that like, if we don't sort of put a time limit on it, it just takes over the day. So we have to kind of like, okay, let's get the like, who read HuffPost? Let's do like 20, 30 minutes of like world catharsis. And then we have to, then we just pivot really quickly to the room. Cause I remember I was doing George and Tammy, and it was all during like, the writer's room was like happening during, January 6th and the recount. And we're trying to do the writer's room at the same time. And it is like, it's like, it was impossible to work. And so I think I've gotten better at running a compartmentalized writer's room. It's like, okay, we're still, this is still a multi-million-dollar corporation we're trying to run. And so there is a bit of it that is like, okay, we gotta take our feelings and use them, but let's make time for each thing and room for it. But there were a few days there where on Paramount's dime, we had like just days of group therapy. I'm like, okay, we can't do that this time during this particular election. So, fingers crossed, we only have to do 10 minutes a day, but I have a feeling we're going to be doing more as this season wears on. But right now we're doing 10 to 15 minutes. That I feel like is a solid practice.
As writers, I'm wondering who or what inspired you early on in your careers? Like, was there a particular writer or a particular film or TV show, or something that made you kind of want to put pen to paper for the first time, and sort of tell stories? We could start with Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up loving Seinfeld and The Simpsons. To the point where I wrote a letter to one of the writers on the show. I was just a kid. My dad was in the Navy. We lived in San Diego, and I just wrote care of The Simpsons Fox, and I sent a letter to Jen Crittenden, who had written on Seinfeld and The Simpsons, just being like, I didn't know this was a job. This is amazing, and this is what got me into writing. And then later got to meet her many years later and really creep her out. But I think for me, those were my kind of formative shows. It was these shows that the Simpsons, which actually has a lot more heart than people might imagine, but was like a joke machine, and Seinfeld because it was this like sort of brilliant character work paired with just incredible performers. And then even on top of that, I would say like The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow and Veep continued to inspire me as I was working in this job. Just the level of joke writing on that show was so incredibly high. It was like watching, a magic trick.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, TV wise, growing up, I would say SNL was huge. I had like every episode just recorded off the TV. There's the VHS tapes are still in my mom's basement in St. Louis. Frasier was a big one. Just brilliant show, perfect pilot. And movie wise, Wayne's World and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is Pee-wee's is like it's surreal for me working at Warner Brothers every day because I'm basically working in the third act of Pee-wee's Big Adventure the entire day, which is just wild, and I have to pinch myself every day I drive onto the lot.
I have to co-sign on The Comeback just because we just have to give it all of its props.
Yes.
Just the show is perfect. And I would say like a cousin to that is Enlightened.
Oh, incredible show.
Like the Todd Haynes directed episode of Enlightened is the most perfect 30 minutes of television in the last 25 years, and I stand by that. So, but that I wasn't a kid during those years, but I would say, I think, and again, I wasn't a kid when this happened, but I was transitioning to writing when The Sopranos aired, and I know there's all these arguments like what's the best show ever like in television history, and is it The Wire or is it Breaking Bad? I'm like, it is The Sopranos. Like there is like why are we having this discussion? But as a kid, like it was John Waters all the way. Like those movies like spoke to me like as a kid in Oklahoma of like just like absurdism and just like taking the piss out of the suburban, and with just like unabashed just queer punk ass rebellion like that. That's the thing that sort of lit my fire, was like Divine screaming, "I want my cha-cha heels." Like, I didn't even know why it was funny and I was laughing, and I still don't know why it's funny, but like, I now know how to make that kind of joke, because it spoke to me. So, that's that. It's anything John Waters.
And who is a dream collaborator who you'd love to work with, or maybe an actor you'd love to write for and get to see your words coming out of their mouth? Abe, you're working with probably the A-list of A-list casts, so you might be working with them already.
I've had some great experiences, like having been the biggest fan of The Sopranos, to work on Nurse Jackie then for 3 years with Edie Falco was unreal. And this cast is, to go to work and hang out with Carol Burnett's awesome. I'd love to work with Sally Struthers. I think just like a treasure of American television, who I just think is an untapped resource. Someone like Sally Struthers, that's my movie star, anyway, that's who I want to work with. I'd like to work with Sally Struthers.
Nice. I would say Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Lisa Kudrow are like probably the two greatest sitcom actresses that have ever lived. And I think both of them are able to carry so much in every line that I would love. You're always looking for somebody who takes what you put on the page and makes it 10 times better. And I think those two are just like a level of brilliance that it feels generational to me. So I would say those two.
That's a good answer. I'll go with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh.
We've written so many pilots with him in mind. Still haven't gotten in a room with him. So Matthew, if you're watching.
Matthew is a substitute teacher next season on Abbott Elementary. Let's make it happen. I want to thank all of you for joining me for this discussion and talk with me and opening up about everything about your shows and your careers, and best of luck to all of you at the Emmys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice to meet you,
You too, Abe.
Yeah, we'll see you on a lot walk at some point.
Sounds good.